So here's a sneak peek of what we'll be putting together today, along with some upgrades. We have the base stand that will go on the bottom of the router table, and we've done modifications to this, including adding some wheels and a shelf and some sideboards to upgrade it a little bit and make it a little bit more useful. This is part one of our video, so if you don't need to see how to do this and you feel perfectly comfortable doing it yourself, you can go ahead and skip to the part two of this series where we actually go and install the top. Here at my house, we are about to go ahead and put something together that I have wanted for a long time, and that is to go ahead and put together a full-size router table. Now, I've used this DeWalt router and I really loved it, but without the table, it was always a little difficult to use and required clamping things down, doing a little bit of the routing, then clamping the other side and finishing it off. I'm hoping that this router table solves all those problems. Now, there are a lot of choices for router tables out there, and I really wanted to get a good one that would last a really long time, and I really didn't need to upgrade very much. So I went kind of midline with this Kreg precision router table, and we're going to go ahead and put that together today. Now, luckily, we have a nice spot to do that. My kids were nice enough to lend me a corner of their playroom. So it was really nice of them to lend me this corner, especially with all the projects they have going on. Before I start, I am going to say that this is probably a pretty big project. Now, it may not seem difficult to put a router table together, but there's a lot of sort of alignment things, and you have to mount the router and drill the board to make it fit. So it may be a little bit more difficult than people think. So I'm going to break this video down into a few parts so that we can really kind of go in depth, and if you don't need help on a certain part, you can just skip ahead to the next video. Okay, I'm going to see if I can find a few helpers, and let's get started with assembling this router table. Well, let's get going on this and clear some of this stuff out of the way and start putting that stand together. Don't worry, we will get back to these pieces. This is definitely a heavy box. This stand is not any different than the one you would buy from Kreg just as a general table stand. So if you're not interested in the router table, this is just a good example of how to put a Kreg stand together. So that was a lot of effort to get this stuff out of the box. But that's a good thing because it meant it was packed pretty well. And you know, Kreg does a nice job on the blue finish to these parts. So it's great to receive them still with that nice finish on it. Now, before we start putting this together, I want to point out a couple of other things from the box. One of which is this little warranty card, which Kreg, you can go straight to their website and you can register this product that you own it. And you'll get tons of email, I'm sure, about discounts and all the other good stuff that happens once you register a product. But the other interesting thing is they do have plans for building a cabinet with these stands, and it might be an interesting thing to look at. Now, I am going to do some upgrades to this, but I'm not going to build a full cabinet. So if you're interested in building a full cabinet or getting those plans, check out the warranty card. The second thing I want to mention is it comes with these nice leveling legs, and these just screw into the bottom of the stand, and once you screw them in, they have a little adjustment with this screw, and it just changes it. So if you have uneven floors, great, you can level out your stand and it will be perfectly straight and level when you use a tool with no rocking. I am, however, not going to use these. That's because I need to be able to move this stand around, so I have some roller wheels that we'll be installing, and we will get to that in a little bit. So until then, I am just also going to put this aside and out of the way. Alright, now let's go ahead and let's start assembling this. The instructions are pretty good, so there's nothing crazy, but I will still go step by step as we put this together. Oh yeah, one last thing I totally almost forgot. Buried in the box are these pocket screws, and if I didn't look in the box and rip them out, I mean they were glued to the side of the box, I would have thrown this out with the box. Now they're not required to assemble the stand, but if you're gonna put a shelf in or any kind of box or cabinet, these are really useful for doing that. So don't forget to go look for these if you buy this product. So before you get started assembling this table, you're going to want to make sure you have two things. The first thing is a speed square to make sure everything is square. And the second is a 1/2-inch socket wrench. This will really make putting the bolts in that much easier. The easiest way to get started is to lay the front face out in front of you. And the front face is going to be these longer crossbars. All these riser sidebars are exactly the same, so you just need 2 of those, and then you need one without the name. So you can really put this anywhere, it's just the Kreg logo, but in the instructions it's on the bottom of the front. So we're going to put that there. We have the top crossbar up here, and we have the sidebars laid out. So the way that these go in, these crossbars actually are behind these side braces. And if you look at the side braces, you'll see they have square holes for the carriage bolts. Pretty easily, you can lay these down like this, and this is a little bit different than the instructions, but it makes it easier for putting the bolts in. I'm going to take this and I'm going to flip this over, lay it down inside the crossbar, do the same for the top. You only need to really be careful about the way you arrange the logo in case you don't want it upside down. And if you do want it upside down, you should still be careful to make sure it's upside down the way you wanted it. Now, to make sure everyone was watching, I did make a mistake, and I wanted to see if you catch it. So did you catch it? Nope. Okay, well here's what I did. Even though these side beams are identical and all 4 can be used interchangeably, they do have an orientation. And mine were upside down. The multiple holes on the bottom where you see lots of these little ones, these go towards the bottom of the bench. So we're just going to flip them around. Now that we got those flipped around, I'm just going to double check to make sure the Kreg is facing the right direction. So we want it right side up. Okay, now we'll go ahead and put these carriage bolts in. Now the reason I said to do this a little bit different than the instruction and flip it upside down is so that when you put the carriage bolts in, the floor will hold them in place. Take these nuts and hand tighten them on. The reason we're only hand tightening them is because later on when we go square this up, we want them to be loose enough to be able to maneuver this back into square if it's not already. For the bottom, it's pretty easy. There's only one place the cross beam fits. On the top, there's 2 options. There's one right at the top and there's one level below. We're gonna wanna put them in the top position. So we'll just go ahead and put the bolts in the same way we did on the bottom. The front frame is loosely assembled. We can go ahead and get our speed square, or really any kind of square that would fit in here, and start squaring up our rails, and then we can tighten them up to lock them in place. So that's pretty easy to do. Just spin this around so we can see the bolts. Go ahead and line up the speed square. Make sure everything is perfect, and then tighten these bolts down. Now that the front's done, we just got to assemble the back, and since the back is exactly the same as the front, here we have this one done too. So now we can go ahead and put on the short crossbars and make this start looking like a table. To put the side crossbars on, we're not really doing anything much different than what we did with the front and back face. So we'll just kind of go ahead and put those in by putting the carriage bolts in, loosely tightening them up to finger tight, putting the front and the back to them, and then standing it up to get it all square. Now that the frame is all squared up, we just got to put these little adjustable legs on, and for my purposes, I'm just going to start out with these in the lowest level. It's the easiest to put them on that way, and if I need to make them higher, I'll just adjust them later on. These just go on like this with these bolts. Now this is the point where we put on these levelers that came with the kit. But this is where also we're going to do our first upgrade, and I want to put roller wheels on this stand so I can move it around. Kreg does make a roller caster kit for this stand and for all the other stands they make, and it's really nice, but I couldn't get it. It wasn't in stock, so I decided to go with some off-brand ones that came straight from China, and really the only thing you need to look for in the casters is the fact that they're dual locking. And what dual locking means is the casters turn both this way and the wheels move, but when you throw this lock, neither the wheel will spin nor will it rotate on this axis. So that's really important to make sure the stand is stable. Now these wheels just go right through the hole and then get attached with the included washer and nut. Well, the table's all assembled and the rolling wheels work pretty great. The one thing I am happy that I did is that I put these bottom leg adjustments on the lowest setting, because with the casters on the bottom it is a lot higher than it would be if it just had the normal leveling feet on it. Now for perspective, I am about 6 feet tall and this is now about waist height for me. It will be a little bit taller once I put the actual router tabletop on this, and it's a pretty comfortable working height, I think. Well, we'll have to wait till it's all assembled, but it's looking good so far. Now, the wheels locks, they work perfectly. Lock it down and they release nice and easy, though you will want to operate them probably with boots on or some kind of shoe on because they're a little stiff to kick on and off. But if you're walking around barefoot in a wood shop, you probably got other things to worry about than getting, cut by a wheel lock. So that leads us up to the final part of part one of this router table assembly process and upgrade process, and that's doing our final upgrade on this table assembly itself. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to put in some side panels, a short back panel, and a shelf on the bottom. There's lots of little pieces and knickknacks and stuff that go along with the router table, and I wanted to have a place to put them. The other nice thing about having the shelf on the bottom is if I'm working with larger pieces, this could get a little top heavy, and in that case it would be nice to put some weight on the shelf just to kind of lower the center of gravity a little bit. Alrighty, let's start with the side panels. And the way I did that was I just cut some 1/2-inch plywood. I had some scraps laying around but wanted this to look nice, so it's a nice birch plywood. And I cut that to the exact dimensions of the side, all the way down to the level of this. And the reason I did that is because I'm a little crazy anal and wanted this to look nice. And I didn't want the bottom of the shelf to show on the side. So I'll stick those in place and you'll see what I mean. So here you go. Now you can see it is one continuous panel top to bottom, and had I put the shelf in first, it would have shown across here, and I just don't think it would have looked as nice. Alright, now that the side panels are in place, we can go ahead and put the shelf in. Now the shelf itself is 3/4 inch MDF. I wanted to use a 3/4 for this since it will give a little bit more stability, and it's a little bit of a heavier duty thing if I ever want to put anything heavy in here. Now I did want to point out that on the back end of the router table, I did leave about a 1/4 inch gap between the shelf and the metal piece over here. And the reason I did that is at some point I may want to put a whole back panel in place and maybe build some stuff around dust collection and that kind of thing. But for now, all I'm going to put back here is a short riser so that when I put things on the shelf, I don't accidentally push them right across and off to the back, and that will cover this up. But if I change that later on, I don't have to recut this bottom shelf. So this is going to be that back panel I was talking about to keep things from falling through. Just another piece of MDF shop scrap that was laying around that's now going to be put to good use. So I'm going to go ahead and slide this into place. So it'll cover that little gap up and back and you'll never notice it. And it gives something to stop all the stuff I'm going to put in here from falling out. Now with the sides installed and the shelf installed and this little backing piece installed, it's time to secure it in place so it doesn't become uninstalled. And I'll just do that with some 1/2-inch panhead screws. These are number 8s that I'm using, and they'll go through the circular holes on the side of this cart that are designed for holding these panels in place, and it will give it a nice secure fit. So this is the final product. We've put some stuff on the shelf. So if you like part 1 of this video and want to make sure you see part 2, make sure to click the like icon below and also just subscribe to our channel to be notified when the new video comes out. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, make sure you leave them down below and I will do my best to answer them as fast as possible. So until the next video, enjoy putting your router stand together, and we will see you for part 2 where we put the top on. I'll make the outtakes.